All right, welcome back, everybody. Thank you so much for being here on our 13th anniversary live stream on Twitch, Facebook, and YouTube. Thanks so much for being here. We are going to be live straight through until midnight, celebrating 13 years of Dungeons and Dragons Online. And with me is executive producer Severlin. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. What's up?
Great. Thanks for stopping by the live stream. I appreciate you being here with us to celebrate 13 years.
Yes, 13 years. 13 is lucky this year, huh?
Yeah, I guess. It's a good thing.
Fantastic.
Well, I think we're all D&D folks. 13 is a fine number. Fine number. All right, so we have a little thing called Sharn coming out.
We do.
And we're going to be taking pre-orders in March for that. We have
Yes.
announced this week. There's a lot of information that the community does not yet know about Sharn.
That
How
is
much,
correct.
how many quests, what exactly is going to be in it, what's the story, all that sort of thing. When do you think we might be able to learn more about that sort of thing?
We are working on pages to bring that up, and we are working on getting that information out to various streaming and media folks in order to sort of put that out to the players. I'm really excited about it because I've got to see some of the things, and one dungeon in particular I'm really excited about it because the dungeon is all about sort of the iconic Sharn art and images, and it was really, really cool. So I can't wait to play that live.
Yeah, and the community has actually just this week, just on Tuesday, had our first look at Sharn because we were able to see on the Lamania public preview server our first kind of early preview of update 41 Sharn itself, and that includes a lot of more, well, I guess what you might call systems-y kind of things, like the Inquisitive universal enhancement tree, the Tiefling, the iconic Tiefling scoundrel, and what else do I see? Yeah, that's pretty much the three main bullet points for Lamania for this week. So.
Absolutely.
So what the heck is an Inquisitive?
So the Inquisitive is sort of like the agent of Sharn. It's specific to that. One of the things that we wanted to do is it uses dual hand crossbows.
Okay.
So obviously we don't want to itemize the entire game, and people weren't having good use for their light crossbows. So basically what the Inquisitive does is they find a light crossbow, and they have the tech to turn it into two-hand crossbows. So you equip one light crossbow, and then you get to fire as if you had that in each hand, essentially is how it works.
And mechanically, I understand it's basically going to work where you will just equip any old crossbow that you want to equip, and it's sort of an automatic process that if you qualify for it, you become an Inquisitive.
Correct.
Yeah.
So basically when the Inquisitive take the proper enhancements, it's, the animation changes and they fire more bolts, and then everything is balanced around that, which means that all of those old sort of light crossbows that people just had no use for suddenly become light and heavy.
I was just going to say that. I think it's heavy too.
Yeah.
Not repeaters, though.
Not repeaters and not great ones.
Yeah, okay.
Because those have plenty of use. The mechanic has good use for either the heavy or the repeater, and the artificer has good use for the repeaters as well.
And my understanding is thematically it makes sense with Sharn as well because the Inquisitive tends to be active in that kind of sort of intrigue and politics and things like that are happening in that city.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's definitely an urban-flavored character.
Yep.
And, Sharn is like the ultimate urban environment, full of legal predators of all kinds, so the Inquisitive has to be on their toes.
Now, you didn't do a lot of the work on the enhancement tree, right? That was someone else?
Well, I went through it.
Okay.
So.
Okay. So what are the, I guess, to the extent you feel comfortable talking about it, what's sort of the, other than the cool dual crossbow animation mechanically or for us DDO min-maxers out there, what does it do for us?
I think the cool thing is that, so Inquisitive not only is DPS, but it has a lot of controls based around diplomacy. And so I think diplomacy is one of those skills that maybe is underutilized, but for this, not only can you use diplomacy to reduce threat, but a lot of your controls are based around what your diplomacy is in terms of preventing villains from like killing you and things. Much like a bard can use perform,
Yep.
The Inquisitive can use diplomacy, for instance, to figure out how effective certain skills are, which is really cool.
Cool. And this is a universal enhancement tree similar to Vistani Knife Fighter, Harper Agent, and Falconry.
Yes.
In that it is available to all classes
Yes.
who want to incorporate this into their build.
Indeed.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure that there are certainly classes that will have better synergy with it. You know, obviously, Artificer and Thief, Rogue, Mechanic have good synergy with it. I'd like to see Kensei and Deepwood Stalkers, but initially the trees are maybe less useful with it, but we're kind of fine-tuning that now. There's even some love for like swashbucklers being able to swashbuckle with with the light crossbow.
That's gonna be
and
fun.
do it, which is like I have no idea how that's going to work. That's like there are some side options that we put in to help, you know, weird synergies that I haven't played yet, so I'm not sure how those will work.
I think we're one step. I now have a second version of my Max Pew build where I can have, multiple pews going on. All right, so Tiefling is the other big piece that's getting its first preview on Lamania this week. It is a new race coming to Dungeons & Dragons Online with Sharn.
Indeed.
And
an iconic.
Yep, and an iconic. And the iconic is going to be...
The Scoundrel.
The Scoundrel. And
it's like a swashbuckling character, and I think what's cool about the iconic is that their bard instrument is a fiddle. So when they do their bard sort of cool songs, they play a fiddle instead of doing the traditional animations for bard.
Now, is that something that our cloak person is working on fiddle animations right now, or is that something that is already sort of not here yet?
I think the fiddle animations are in. Currently.
I think so too. I haven't been on Lamania. I've been too busy.
If you play the iconic bard, that it's in.
All right, awesome. All right, so the basic racial trait is a +2 on charisma, and you can see the full tree there as well. It does offer some ways to get additional fire, damage, and spell power, universal spell power, sort of elemental resistances, and things like that. Any other kind of pieces you think we should specifically call out on the tree itself that you know of?
No, the tree is probably going to be very good for sorcerers since it's a charisma-based race, but I'm hoping that the race will be interesting enough to, be able to be used for a lot of classes. And then the iconic has some stuff that is more swashbuckly.
Yeah. And again, you can look at the actual tree itself on the Lamania forums of DDO.com. That's probably better than going line by line or something like that through it here right now.
Yeah, that would be kind of...
Specifically because this is an early build as well. We have.
Right.
So what are the other preview plans? Do you know what we have in the works here for Sharn?
I love the idea, by the way, of cowbell. I just don't know if we could get it. Someone was like, why no cowbell? Yes. Yes. Don't fear the Reaper, my friends. It's Bard.
Yeah. So I guess what else can we say about Sharn? Maybe what to expect in the coming weeks? Anything else we really kind of want to chat about here?
Obviously, we're anxious to get a lot of the content up in terms of and getting information on content. I think the players will be pleased by that. One of the things that I don't think that we've released is that the second raid for Sharn will follow the release, so you'll get a raid with Sharn and a second raid after that.
Not entirely unlike what we did with Ravenloft.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. And then we're saving information on how and whys of stuff. I think it'll be cool. We have a different kind of sort of feel for the cogs, where you go in there and explore and can find a whole bunch of stuff there. And then, you also can go all the way to the highest heights of Sharn and hobnob with, the rich and powerful and maybe not entirely uncorrupted sort of Sharn elite.
Yeah.
Then the story that we started in the last update will also continue in Sharn about going into Sharn and basically following up on the last dungeon pack.
Right.
I'm looking down because I
you have Twitch chat up on your phone.
The Twitch phone,
so one of the pieces that came up, I guess this came up on the forums regarding the cogs, is a little bit of people don't quite understand what do we mean that we're doing something a little different in the cogs. Can we talk at all about kind of what our plans are for the cog landscape?
The cog landscape is full of cool how can I put this? When you explore the clogs, you should be able to find adventure that might be outside the normal storyline dungeons.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I don't want to release too much because I don't know what... We want to save some juicy tidbits for streamers and stuff.
Yeah.
So if I tell everything, then when the streamers go and review the stuff, they won't have juicy tidbits. Yeah. And we really want to reward them from doing that. So that's why I'm hesitant about how I talk about the stuff in terms of that.
We had a particularly perhaps critical comment that was from someone who maybe is less a fan of the large landscapes like, say, King's Forest and that sort of thing, and wondering how cogs will fit into that picture. And I think the answer is it's a kind of a totally different approach to doing that sort of thing, for the most part, right?
Going through the cogs will not only be about going through the cogs like a traditional landscape, except obviously it's indoors and at the bowels of the city, but also about finding adventure in there in terms of instance the stuff. Yeah. So as you wander through, you will be able to find entrances and doorways is the idea. I don't want to say too much more, but so it's a little different than maybe some of the other landscapes.
All right. So anything else you want to mention before we kind of turn it over to the community here for a little bit?
I mean, there's tons.
Yeah, I know, right? We have the producers that are coming here real soon. We're just kind of polishing out some final part of the process to get it published and all that sort of thing. That should be hopefully soon, and we'll talk a little bit, I think, more about what to expect later in the year.
Yeah, I'm excited for the coming year, too, because, we have other sort of stuff coming, and I think the producer's letter will talk about it a little bit, but I can sneak preview that one of the things that people get sick of when they reincarnate is going through Korthos over and over and again. So I think that we're going to try to do some sort of keep on the Borderlands type of stuff to give our experienced players an alternate, because Korthos is really designed to bring newer players in, and we don't want to derail them and then throw them into a landscape where they don't know what's going on.
But for our experienced players, who've done it before.
Yeah, once you've been through the content like 50 times, then, you can go into Keep on the Borderlands and do those early levels and maybe go right to a higher level with alternate content. I think that will help sort of the people who do it over and over again. Because most of the other areas, you can find alternate content if you really are sick of doing red fens or whatever. Yeah. But for that, it's like, I have to do Korthos pretty much every time. Well, you won't anymore. Yeah. And, so we'll do a Keep on the Borderlands as that experience and then do a higher level version, basically for nostalgia. I mean, Keep on the Borderlands as a dungeon is also meant to be an introductory to Dungeons and Dragons, so it's not the most complex encounter. Yeah. So I imagine we'll have to add some DDO-esque surprises there as well.
Now, we've done that before where we've translated some classic modules that originally released as a certain level range and then adapted it to whatever level range felt appropriate for DDO. And this will be kind of interesting in that I don't know that we've done something like Keep that really was a focus at kind of an introductory and then also make a higher level version of that. I'm not sure. Right. It's usually been the other way around.
Yes.
Yeah. So
that'll be interesting to see what we do with the higher level version, if anything. I mean, if it comes out and we are going through it and we feel that it's an introductory thing, we may just do that and have people have that low level. But I mean, I think that we want the players at endgame or at least in the high levels to have something new during that time.
Yep.
So we'd like to, do that, and maybe the higher level version has some extra stuff.
Yeah. All right. As long as we have about 9 minutes or so left here, why don't we take some questions from the community? If you're on Twitch, Facebook, or YouTube, and you would like to ask a question of Severlin, we'll do our best to answer what we can answer, but feel free to ask whatever you feel you would like to, and we will see what we can do here for the next 10 minutes. We'll have more information about how you get Tieflings with the pre-order soon. we'll have more information about that soon. What about classwork? Do we have any? What are our classwork plans, perhaps, for the relatively near future?
Well, Sorcerer got a pass for Eldritch Knight. We need to do Pale Master. Pale Master will take longer because its reliance on negative energy to heal and its self-healing not only makes it a special type of class outside the norms, so you have to pay special attention to get it just right so it feels good, but it's not overpowered. But also, one of the issues with Pale Master is its shtick is self-healing a lot, and because that is cut down in Reaper, that particular class is punished in that particular kind of content. So we have to really think out what we do with that.
Clearly, the first focus is on things like, because a lot of the resources that would be done on this classwork are some of the same resources that are being used for like the Inquisitive and Tiefling, things like that. So it may be a little while, maybe perhaps. I don't know that we really have any plans for Sharn in particular for classwork.
No, we won't have time. Then the other sorcerer trees will need to be touched upon, but our goal was to make the spells different. In other words, increase the base spells to be more powerful, and that will help the trees that help out those spells. And the feedback from the players so far is that sorcerers in heroic are rocking it, but in the highest level content, maybe it gets hard, like in High Reaper. That they run out of spell points because it just takes a lot to damage things.
Yeah.
And we put in the little jewels in High Reaper to help to help our spell point classes go along. I don't know if that's going to be enough because it's not consistent. So that's something. And then Reaper itself will be revisited.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we're going to be looking to fine-tune Reaper at the high end. I don't want to freak anyone out about what we're going to do, but tweak the meta a little bit so that other kinds of classes can participate and stuff. Is something that we will likely do. I'd like to add more Reapers.
Yep.
Like more Reaper types.
That actually came up earlier on in the stream. I had mentioned that we had kind of done a little brainstorming in the past about that, but we haven't really formally announced it, although it sounds like maybe that's a little closer than I thought.
I mean, once we get past Sharn, then the thing about the Reapers right now is that even though there are many different kinds, the gameplay is kill it with fire immediately when it appears. You know what I mean? So even though different Reapers can appear, your reaction is pretty much the same. So what will end up happening is we'll probably try to make a Reaper that you're better off killing last when there aren't other creatures around.
Yeah.
And so what form that takes will be interesting. And if the players don't know that goal, then other things like Reapers that
perhaps focus on kiters or something like that.
Yeah,
I know it's come up in the past. So
exactly.
Yeah. All right. So someone told me to ask. Where is that now?
I'm kind of looking at the stream.
Someone wants me to ask about sort of our plans for ranged weapon balance. And I know it's a very complex topic, but do you have any kind of thoughts about what our efforts? What we might be able to do to make sure that, say, shurikens and throwing daggers and bows and crossbows are in the same general cloud, as it were?
Right now, throwing daggers are, the strength-based kind of throwing weapons like daggers and axes are meant to be a supplement for melee when they can't reach something. I'd love to balance them, and if we did that, though, we'd probably do it through Universal Tree. Because if we did it through basic, normal rebalancing of them, then being able to switch back and forth would be really powerful. Yeah. Whereas when you play a shuriken build, I know that all of the multi-shot shuriken 10k star builds are kind of like, old school, everyone knows how they work now, but it actually takes a lot of resources to build one of those, and it takes, practice to get one really optimal.
Yeah.
You have to time out your stuff and make sure everything goes off on cooldown and stack up things. Vistani had a lot of... Vistani was all about having throwing knives as a backup, but not as a primary. So it did add a lot of good throwing knife stuff, but it was always meant to be like, I need to I need to pull or do something, at range for this particular encounter, which is kind of cool, but the way most players play with sort of the zerging and sort of bursting down things as fast as they can, that level is less useful in groups and more like in solo when you're trying to solo stuff that's too powerful. It's useful. So I can understand why the players would be like, the stani knife throwing isn't enough. If that makes sense.
All right. Leroy Jethro says, please don't break my Pillmaster. We'll do our best.
No, it's supposed to. We're trying to make it.
Yeah.
We're trying to make it like better. That's our goal. Pillmaster is certainly not like so ahead in the meta that we have any reason to make it weaker. So.
Yeah. All right. Grimgrod says, any thoughts about revamping older content? That's something we did for a while in DDO's history. As I was going through 13 years, there was kind of almost an era where we did a lot of classic, like epified various quests and legendified various quests.
Sure.
Do we have any real plans to do that?
So the problem with that is if you do it too much, it's bad, and if you don't do it enough, it's bad. We did it a little too much. And one of the problems is a lot of these packs were written long before we had the standards we do today, in terms of like how to implement things. So going through and figuring out what the designers did is really time-consuming, more time-consuming than making new content. So when it came down to epifying certain things, like epifying Three Barrel Cove took almost as long as just doing a new, completely new area. So if there was real time savings to be done, absolutely. I mean, there are some areas that I would love to do. Like, I kind of like the flavor of the Necropolis, but there's certain dungeons that require more than one person or really out of their use of multiple henchmen that if anything goes wrong, you end up stuck. Delaris has that too, but at least that's pretty simple to do with henchmen, you know, the pulling of the lever in that one area. So we'd like to do that so they're more solo friendly. Yes, anything that we could do to sort of revamp and epify would be great in terms of if we could do it time efficiently. But if doing that would take more time than doing new content, it's a hard decision to make because I think a lot of players would like new content. And sometimes the players consider the revamp us kind of copping out when actually sometimes the revamps are actually harder than just doing new content. You know what I mean? Like there's you have to be careful you don't get the lose-lose where the players are like, why aren't they bringing new content? Clearly they're like slacking off and actually it took longer to do the whatever, you know, and it's like
Three Barrel's a great example of that. So we aren't yet ready to talk about the exact number of quests and stuff in Sharn. We haven't yet said, and I don't know the level range. Are we at all? It's heroic and legendary. We can pretty well.
I think that's
say
one
that,
of the things
so.
that we're releasing with the new information, and so I don't want to sort of spoil that.
There was a little bit of confusion that I want to clear up here on the live stream. So. Woody Rocker and I believe it was Cetus had alluded to us basically saying, so have we announced that we're working on a new starter area? And I don't really think that may be the right way to say it. Someone had also said, are we going to revamp the character selection screen since we're focusing on the new player experience? And I think that may be leading some people a little bit to a different conclusion than our plans for Keep on Borderlands.
We definitely don't want to do a new starter area. So Korthos was revamped like 8 times with various experts on trying to get new players indoctrinated into like all of the eccentricities of DDO, and it took so long and so many iterations that doing a new starting area for new players is not. I know that people are like, well, Korthos needs a revamp, but it got revamped like a lot. And what we have now actually tested the best out of all of our stuff, so we don't want to touch that. Keep on the Borderlands is really meant for, I've done Korthos 722 times on my
or even if you've done it a couple of times, for reincarnation. This is an alternative to kind of give you a different experience, probably for that's a little less hand-holdy, but is still low level, perhaps.
I think that, and so we're not revamping the character. I mean, the character display screen has a new background. doesn't have the tan, dingy fog over it.
right.
That looks really great.
That's right. That's on Lamadia this week,
really
too.
psyched about that. Like,
So is it true that we learned that there's brown in our brown?
Yeah, no, like there was literally a fog cloud in areas of like dingy smog that was brown over our already tan overuse of tan in the landscape. So it was like taking that out and trying to balance. In fact, part of the problem is that some things became too bright and sunny, and so we're trying to find a happy medium.
Yeah, exactly right. Jack Poe is very interested. He's been, or this person has been hitting up Twitch chat a bunch. Ranger rework in the works? ? What are we planning to do for Rangers? Do you have any thought about that?
Sure. So Tempest isn't. I know that everybody would be like, "Oh my God, that's wrong," but Tempest is actually in pretty good shape DPS wise. Maybe survivability is an issue. Maybe they're a little behind the very top classes, but some of our classes also are probably a little too far ahead. The Deepwood Stalker has always been a hybrid type of thing in terms of DPS there, you know what I mean? So I think that we could definitely take a look at Arcane Archer. So Arcane Archer has really good CC when using Precise Shot. Like if you have paralyzing arrows going, you can just keep lines of things locked down. So I don't think that we ever want that CC to be as good as like pure DPS classes, for instance. And that's basically the issue. And Arcane Archer, at least at lower levels in like heroics and stuff, when they get spell power because they are balanced on that instead of melee power. I mean range power, obviously.
We also hear a lot, kind of long-term requests on someday perhaps having familiars or pets or
familiars.
Things like that for Rangers too. So.
Yeah, no. Well,
wild companions, or however you want to term it. Right?
Yeah, the wild companions. We need to do a pass on all of the companion pets, including the druid and the artificer ones. And I'm loath to introduce a new one before we actually fix the old ones. Familiars will come out as a universal tree that'll be caster only. Like you won't be able to take it unless you have like at least one level of arcane cast. It will kind of be like the caster version of falconry. The hold up on that would be like getting the art for all of the various special familiars like quasits and imps and pseudo dragons and stuff like that.
So I don't think that's really on our agenda.
No,
anytime real soon here. Someone wants to know specifically about Reaper. Do we have any plans to look at the way melee and ranged and sort of kiting casting interact in high-level Reaper? It's a tough question. But do we have plans to work on the sort of role in a high-level Reaper related to, say, melee or ranged versus kind of kiter caster types? Are we going to help out melee at all? What are our plans for melee and high-level Reaper?
Well, I mean, we just added a feat that added tons of hit points, so they can take that precious third hit when they turn around, right?
Yeah.
And the melee are doing excellent DPS, competitive, if not better than ranged, but ranged have the survivability of So as in high-level Reaper, when something goes wrong, ranged has the capability of like kiting away before they die until things can be stabilized by your CC casters so the tank can pick it up, and melee just kind of dies because the thing turns around. Like if your tank dies, your melee die like immediately thereafter because they're sort of engaged, where if a savvy ranged person can be like, oh my God, I need to do my abundant step away while we res the tank and the CC caster locks down everything. Right. So for high-level Reaper, one of the things we want to do is, I think that the tanks are too dependent on Intimidate, so when they go into content where Intimidate doesn't work, it becomes problematic, so we want to increase their threat range so they can keep up with the DPS. I think that will help melee a little bit. And the melee right now should have more survivability through extra hit points. I know that it's not quite the same as like the ranged people just not being there to get punched in the face twice and die, but it is something. And the melee is pretty good on DPS right now if you're playing the right kind of melee.
Nice.
I think paladins are lagging behind, we need to revisit Tempest, for instance, but I actually don't think that Tempest and Kensei are that low with the right builds.
So unfortunately, like on Facebook here, if
Yeah.
you're watching on Facebook, Facebook recently changed some of their live stream, the way they present it, and they're not showing me people's comments in chronological order.
Oh, that's weird.
They're showing them by relevancy, kind of how Facebook is doing this. I'm having a little bit of a hard time finding your questions on Facebook, but what about a quest jumper for the Manectaran Desert? This one comes from Facebook. Essentially an NPC that would take you straight to, like, say, Chains of Flame or something like that.
You don't like walking around
Yeah.
the giant chasm of doom and getting lost in there
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
end up having people actually finish the dungeon before you find the one bridge to get across?
Yeah.
Come on.
What about I'm not going to go into too many wish lists here, but
Right.
for another one here, will we ever get to fight a metallic dragon, as they aren't all good?
Maybe.
Maybe. Yep.
Maybe.
Are we actually going to get to old augments and, like, changing up the augment system?
Yeah, that's on our list.
Okay.
But probably not this year. Like,
Yep.
there's two problems. One is it's just a lot of work. But two is versioning everything, all the old stuff, without screwing things up is actually the bigger problem than creating new augments and a new augment system.
Yeah. So probably not this year. What about?
I would love to use augments as rewards much more often. And the actual reason that we don't upgrade the augment rewards is that the system currently is all done in crafting, causes a lot of lag, and we
Yeah.
really don't want to build into that system more until we've had a chance of revamping it.
Yeah. And what about guild airships? We've long had that kind of, on the largest airship, one open kind of place to put something. And we've talked in the past about other kind of thoughts, what we'd like to do with guild airships. Any of that on the agenda?
Yeah, I think that one of the things we'd like to do is have another pass at giving guild stuff to earn. And part of it will be amenities that can go in your guild airship, maybe some more guild airship stuff, maybe some sort of event or something that's revolving around guilds. But I don't know what that is yet right now. I mean, the easiest amenity to do, and when I say easy, I mean would be like a DPS kobold
Yeah.
as a guild amenity. But
Yeah.
I think that when we looked at it, the actual creation of the guild amenities was a little more work than we remembered. And so it's not something I can sort of
Yeah.
do on as a side thing. Someone's going to have to actually go through and to remember how to do amenities and make the whole thing and then lay it out and then make sure it fits on the airship and all of that goodness.
All right. Just because I know that you can't answer it, I'm going to ask you 3 uncomfortable questions that I know you can't answer, so don't answer them. Do you have anything to tell us about a DDO progression server similar to the Lotro server? If you had to launch an additional campaign setting in DDO, which would it be? And are we ever going to have something like a Mirror of Opposition in the future? You can't answer any of those questions, I don't think. Mirror of Opposition? Because of the
I'm
thing?
blanking on what a mirror of opposition is.
Well, I'm not sure, but I'm thinking mostly about the thing that's coming in the thing, in the Sharn. So, but I'm not going to say the name right now.
So
Yeah.
I think that we have some options of alternate ways to play D&D that'll come that'll be fun for players. And what was the second question?
What if you could, just kind of personal opinion, if you had to launch an additional campaign setting in DDO like Eberron Forgotten Realms, what would it be? Personal opinion.
I'm not answering that because because if I do that, then what will end up happening is
People will read into it.
people read into it, and that would put Wizards of the Coast on the spot a little bit in terms of whether any visiting of new areas is worked out between us and Wizards, so we both think it's cool enough.
Yeah.
And so for me to kind of start talking about wistfully things like that without Wizards also kind of in would be irresponsible as much as I
That's
like
why I was kinda
talking
asking
about
it
my old D&D
facetiously,
campaigns.
right.
Like if you're talking about what D&D campaigns I've run in
Yeah.
that I like and not be video game based, then yeah, that would be a discussion I could do at like a player meetup or stuff.
I was just going to say, that's what you should ask. Ask Sev at Gen Con or PAX East on that question.
Right, and like what D&D characters in what campaigns have I enjoyed.
Finally, I wanted to ask a little bit about Isle of Dread. We had mentioned Isle of Dread at the Gen Con party as something that we were hoping to do in the relatively near future, and we are focusing on Keep on the Borderlands here this year. What is the status of Isle of Dread?
That'll be next.
Yeah.
So Keep on the Borderlands will be first because we need the low-level experience. We think it'll be cool, and then Isle of Dread will basically come at some point after that. But as we went into Isle of Dread and looked at it, there are a number of things about Isle of Dread that we need to solve, like making cool enough dinosaurs, and that are not long. They're not short-term things.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? And when the art team comes off Sharn, we can hardly set them into that high level of, like, Isle of Dread is almost expansion level art.
Yeah.
Because there's so many new creatures and that's the issue. And if you see a T-Rex, you need to see a T-Rex. And that needs to be like arrayed, and you know what I mean? And it has certain epicness to it.
Yep.
So.
What about 4K work? Any thoughts on 4K work for DDO? I know we get that question on both games here in recent months.
Yeah, the problem with DDO is it doesn't have any scaling UI. And we would like to move scaling UI tech over to DDO, but like it has a number of unique challenges because it's not surprisingly, its UI is unique. So until we get that, 4K work for DDO is tough.
Yeah.
And because the art was never meant to be scaled, if you scale it up, you'll get pixelization. So because I have a 4K monitor, and yes, it's annoying to put my resolution down, you know what I mean, when I play DDO. So I hear you on that.
Yeah. All right. Let me think. Anything else? We'll make this our last question, because you got to get back to work, and I'm going to take a little break here before heading over to Galanda to do some giveaways and such. Growler gets a last question. Since we are releasing a 64-bit client for Lotro, that is the plan. It's heading to a beta in Lord of the Rings Online later this year at some point. What about a 64-bit client for DDO?
Yeah, once the Lotro one follows, like a lot of the back-end work has been done, our goal is to then move on to DDO and work on a 64-bit client for DDO as well, in terms of, getting that out. But DDO has some different back-end systems with Lotro that will make that neither easy nor short.
That's also, if I recall, DDO has some kind of like third-party plugins and various things that Lotro might not, that would also impact this kind of conversion and all that sort of thing as well. So,
unfortunately, it just takes a long time. I want it done yesterday. The engineers are awesome, but they're like, you can't have it yesterday, and so.
I keep on telling people to install a Make It Work button on the keyboard.
I know.
But they just...
I know.
Yeah, so... All right, any kind of final thoughts here before I let you go?
I need a technomancer.
Right.
that can cast fix-it spells rather than actually having you do the hard work of actually coding everything.
Right. All right, well, thank you so much, Sev, for stopping by the 13th anniversary live stream. Congratulations, DDO. 13 years. Where were you 13 years ago today? Do you remember?
I was basically starting work in this company 13 years ago today. Yeah. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you very much for watching our 13th anniversary live stream on YouTube, Facebook, and